Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
I gotta bring it back. Welcome. This is the Sports Trapp Podcast. My name is Trapp. And as always, my man, my brother from another mother, Father of the Year 2020. 2020, yes, sir. Here he is, live in the flesh, a.k.a. Sean Kemp or Gary Payton.
Oh, the glove, Gary Payton, of course.
Of course.
The glove.
Christopher C. Rodriguez, how you doing, sir?
What did you, Houston?
Love the hat, the old Sonics. That was classic touch. Yes, sir. And as well, we can't fail to mention the man that puts it all together, man with the master plan, Funk Master Flex himself, Mr. Khoa. Flexing on that mic.
Yeah, look at that mic, man. He looks so sexy with that mic. He actually looks like a professional, unlike us goof asses over here.
Trying to get my audio right. This has been shitty since we started this, so.
fellas, man. We cannot wait to get into this Last Dance episodes 7 and 8. 7 and 8. Fellas, what'd you think real quick off the top of the head? Would you like it?
Yeah, I mean, we're just getting more and more information about, not just Michael Jordan, but backstories and the Bulls and what's leading to this last 2 episodes. It's going to be awesome.
Hey, and you got shout out to that hat, that Supersonic hat, man. One of the things about that 7 and 8 is Khoa was telling me, man, we did not remember how good the Supersonics, and they kind of set it up to the where the Supersonics weren't that good, but actually when push came to shove, a.k.a. Gary Payton elbowing, shoving, moving, strong-arming Michael Jordan, the Supersonics had a good team. I forget, man. They had Detlef Shrimp, Gary Payton, Sean Kemp. So, man, I tell you what, one of the great things about watching these episodes, you get to relive that era and understand how good these other teams were that he was facing, the Hall of Famers, the people that he defeated on his way up to becoming Michael Jordan and the legend and the quote unquote GOAT of the NBA. I wanted to delve into that a little bit more, but yeah, 7 and 8 classic episodes. I cannot wait till next week. We also, like I said, we had this debate of the GOAT going on now that's being relived, and the new kids out there, the new millennials who haven't seen Michael Jordan play up until this point, they're holding on to them last strings of LeBron James. But I will say that Shaq has put in his opinion. I want to kind of bounce that out for you guys as well. So, and then there's a little rumor about Kobe Bryant having his own film crew coming in and filming his last year. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Just looking at the way this documentary is set up, what kind of documentary would we have coming for Kobe Bryant should that ever come to fruition? Because I know I am so ready for that to happen. I wanted to ask you, Chris, later on in the show, and I wanted you to just to maybe think about this. What would you call the documentary if Kobe Bryant had a documentary come out in this kind of style, whether it be 5 episodes, 10 episodes? I don't know. I don't care. If it was 20, I'd watch. But still, what would you call it? And I'll get your answer later on during the show. And also, listen, man, all these sports, and this is why we come together, all these sports have shut down. The NBA completely in the middle of the season closes doors. The NFL, they're going on business as usual, but there's a little bitty clues here and there are coming up, thinking that maybe the NFL might have to do something about playing maybe without fans. You got MLB hadn't even started their season, and UFC actually put on a show this week, and I wanted to get you guys' opinion. So let's get right into the show. Episode 7, Michael Jordan. episode 7, Last Dance, he decides to, I think it opens up with him finally winning that third of the last of the first three-peat. And so he was thinking about doing something other than baseball already, but after that third three-peat, he was exhausted. He even goes out to the point where he says that the only reason he even came back, talking to his father, because he promised his father he actually wanted to go into to play baseball, but the only reason he came back was to do something that Magic Johnson and Larry Bird never got to do, and that's winning 3 championships in a row, creating a three-peat. So that sets up, and he wins that third three-peat, and unfortunately, his dad had a tragic accident, murder, and then you get to see how Michael Jordan really, really handles adversity on a life scale. Something that we had never seen Michael Jordan up until his first few days in the NBA really come back down to earth, and how he handled it. And he ends up going in and playing baseball. At the time, can you imagine somebody in this day and age, and let's say that somebody's LeBron James. LeBron James just picks up a baseball and says, I want to play a completely different sport. And not only did he just change the sport, but he did it in the prime of his career. It's not like he stopped because his game was fading off. He just came off a championship. In fact, he came off a 3. He was at the pinnacle and decides, you know what? I just want to play another sport. And so to see that and to recognize that, is there a human aspect into Michael Jordan? And I think at some point, I think the public actually felt like they needed to bring him back down to size. And so when he started playing baseball, it was almost like there was ridicule. Sports Illustrated even came out and put him on the cover of their magazine, saying that he's an embarrassment to baseball, the sport of baseball. And for all intents and purposes, kind of goes into his competitiveness and his ire for retaliation, that he decided he never talks to Sports Illustrated again from that day forward. He's never talked to him again. So I want to know, as a man, how much did that kind of get a window to seeing of who Michael Jordan was to you, Chris and Khoa? Who was he as a man that you saw? What did you take differently than that maybe you didn't know from before watching this episode?
Definitely. Before I get started, I just want to say this episode is brought to you by Clorox Bleach. Now, this is not to swallow or to inject, just so we be clear on that one. Anyways, I think Michael Jordan personified the quote or the saying that it's lonely being number one, or it's lonely at the top. I think Michael Jordan did a disservice to himself and to the people who loved him and family around him. It's what I'm gaining from a lot of the episodes that I've seen with his quest to be number one, his hyper competitiveness. And I also would say that Michael Jordan, to me, low-key, is probably the GOAT. I would say the GOAT of being petty. Michael Jordan is very, very petty, especially the way he approaches the game. Even like, we get into some of these episodes, the 7 and 8, and we talk him creating games within the game just so he can push himself to another level. Was telling, just showing just how hyper competitive he was as a man. I mean, he couldn't even just, we go in a couple episodes prior to that when, he's playing, cards on the airplane, and they're paying for like $10,000. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden he goes to the front and plays with the guys who don't have that kind of cash, and he just wants to beat them just to beat them, even though it's not about money. It's Michael Jordan is we're starting to learn there's so many layers to this onion. And I also think that Michael Jordan has a lot of darkness that surrounds him as well. And when he starts talking about this, and it's something I hope we can get in a little bit too, about the way he treated his teammates. And there was a point where he started getting really emotional and walked off the set. And it almost as if Michael Jordan wanted you to feel sorry for him of his competitiveness or his drive, even though it became mentally, physically abusive towards his players. But it was almost as if he wanted us to understand that he was willing to do anything and everything, including punch his own teammates in order to win the game. I think it's just really telling. Jeff Van Gundy said it today that this type of leadership would not be accepted in today's basketball. Players wouldn't accept it. The media wouldn't accept it. And he would actually be crucified as a bully, somebody who was physically and verbally abusive. And for me, in many ways, it kind of really opened my eyes to who he was as a man. Like, even he was willing to lower his ethics and morals if it meant winning at all costs. I don't know. That's just kind of what I've been gaining from Michael Jordan as a person, as well as a competitor.
So do you think that now that he has, and he's come out and he said, you know, I think this documentary might show me a little bit like an asshole. And
beyond asshole.
I think he was now he's justified, because up until this point you really didn't know how much of what he was saying was actually true, because we, up to this point, it was all building up and you appreciated what he's had to go through, right? Now he's the pinnacle. He's the top dog. And he's so worried about winning at all costs, like you said, that he's willing to step over B.J. Armstrong. Like you said, find games within a game. Just the fact that B.J. Armstrong looked at the bench and was like whooping in front of them took Jordan to a whole nother level, right? And I was listening to the director, and he was telling me a story, telling a story about how George Karl did not even say hi to him when they were playing the Sonics in the finals. And he ignored him. So Jordan's like, "Oh, you want to ignore me? I'm about to bust your ass." Same thing with Horace Grant. Everything that led him to be such a champion also led him to be such an ultra competitor, that I think that brought out maybe the point of this brought out at this point of the documentary how much of an asshole he really was. And he got to see it in a perspective that what everybody else gets to see. And I don't know if he's trying to find, like you were saying, you find ways for people to feel sorry for him. But I knew that it was taking a toll on him, because people don't necessarily, they don't like leaders in that sense. If you're willing to step over them, leaders like that aren't liked. They're more feared. And at that point, I think that's what Jordan was trying to do, was trying to instill fear in them, so much so that when they actually got to somebody that was a competitor in the finals or whatever the opponent, they would have no fear. You get what I'm saying? I think that's what Steve Kerr, what he was doing with Steve Kerr when he punched him. And it showed that Steve Kerr actually fought back, showed that Steve Kerr was willing to fight with him.
Well, of course, Scottie Burrell, he's in counseling. But,
you know, I don't know, Khoa, like, do you feel like maybe this episode, these two episodes, do you feel like maybe you could have taken a swing at him?
Physically?
Yeah, like if he's doing that stuff to you, how would you respond to it? Like I said, at some point, I don't think the Van Gundy said that leadership wouldn't fly today. Mm. You know, people like that don't respond today in today's day and age that way or to that manner, so much so that you know they would probably kick Jordan out. Imagine somebody punching somebody on an NBA team right now. Do you think they would be even like Michael Jordan didn't even get suspended. He's like, you got to get out of practice.
I mean, it's so much has changed, and I think that, you know, with this coming out and him talking about it, Steve Kerr talking about it, and all these other players and coaches talking about how different the league was, how different, you know, officiating and all that, and all the times they showed which anything that would any one of those plays that wasn't called a foul that in today's game would be like a flagrant 2 or definitely a double technical or any of those, you know, like it kind of gives you a glimpse of how different things then were. And it's hard to say if that wouldn't fly necessarily. I think I think we can agree that it wouldn't fly, but I think the reason why it wouldn't fly is because the culture isn't like that anymore. It's almost like not allowed. It's not allowed by the league. It's not allowed by the owners. It's not allowed by, you know, just like, I guess the commission and just the whole structure of it. Whereas back then, you know, you can say that it was either really lax or it was tougher, whatever your stance was on that. Like that was one of the byproducts you got from it. When you got someone like a Jordan who to a lot of people may seem like a tyrant, seem like an asshole, like he was saying, but, you know, one of the strongest things that he said in the documentary, which I'm sure he's said before, but he never made anybody or told anybody to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. He was that type of leader. He was not, in his mind, the tyrant that was just going to bully you and push you and yell at you for no reason. It always had a purpose. It was always for the betterment of the team, and it was something that he always had that high of a standard set for himself, so he wanted everybody else to live by that standard, play by that standard, practice by that standard, and that was just his philosophy. I mean, I think for the most part, I feel like I've always kind of known that, but you see a better glimpse of it now, and it makes me wonder for, you know, when you're like going back to your question, for the stars of today, if Steph Curry, if LeBron, even Kobe, you know, like Kobe, you heard little glimpses of kind of the same mentality of what MJ had kind of was like back then. And, you know, the era that Kobe played in, of course, is a little before now, but he was kind of like the segue from the 90s game into what the game is today. So he kind of probably went through that whole transition of the different types of eras, the different types of coaching. You know, he got to play with Phil Jackson and then afterwards. And so I think, you know, Kobe got the best of, like, I think both worlds in the transition of that. So, but it really does make me wonder for the players like LeBron, you know, like, I don't know the type of leader necessarily he is, but I wonder, you think if he had more of that mentality, like if it, for one, would have been okay if the media or if the league would have accepted it, or if they would have just like kind of pushed it out and said like, oh no, like you're being too hard, or well, could it have led to him winning more championships? All the time that he made to, you know, the finals, those 7-8 years, what was, you know, kind of makes you think, what was the determining factor that he didn't win? That Jordan made 6 for 6, but someone like LeBron, who also made it there that many times, couldn't win that many times. You know, like, I mean, there's other factors in there too, you know, but it just makes me think, and I was like, like when you start to think about the GOAT debate, you think about the two, it's like, what is really the difference between them? You know, besides just like athletic ability. You know, when you think of mentality, we think of Mamba mentality, MJ, Jordan mentality, LeBron mentality. When you think of LeBron, you never think his mentality. You think his physical specimen. You think how big he is, how strong he is. He's an athletic freak of nature. He's a tight end playing basketball, you know. But when do you really think, like, is he mentally the strongest out of those three? And I think, to me, he's mentally the weakest out of those three.
But anyway, that's a different debate. But.
Hey, you know what? Let me jump in this real fast. And surprisingly, I might actually defend LeBron James here. So y'all be ready. Make sure this is on record here. I think what I'm gaining from this is an unpopular opinion, but I think for such a long time we've been so captivated by Michael Jordan and his legacy that we've given him such a pass as a man. We've given him such a pass. He was definitely a tyrant. He was verbally and physically abusive. And he was willing to even isolate and put his family to the side where there was no connection. There's always been rumors about his wife to his kids. Michael Jordan was willing to win at all costs, even if he was the bad guy. It's almost as if he embraced being the bad guy. That leadership is a leadership we have all encountered some part in our lives when we've had a manager of some sort in our fields chastise us, belittle us, talk to us in this way that's demeaning in their eyes and views, only to get the best out of us. But it doesn't get the best out of you. It gets a reaction out of you that becomes emotional. And you just look about when Michael Jordan finally retired, the first time he retired and Scottie Pippen took over, they talked about how much the team was playing better together, how the morale was so much better. There was less stress because you didn't have someone that was just constantly pounding and pounding and pounding you all day long. And the only reasons why I feel like we give him a pass and we give that leadership a pass today is because he won 6 championships. But what if Michael Jordan only won 3 championships, but still contained that same attitude and that same leadership style? Then we would probably sit back and say, well, maybe that style really didn't work. And so that's where I'm coming from. And I will say this, the one thing we can say that LeBron James has never really shown was that competitiveness of Kobe, that killer instinct of Kobe and Michael Jordan. It's always been my biggest issue with him. But I will say this, LeBron James could go down just winning 3 championships for the rest of his life, and I think he'd be okay with that because at least he can live with himself that he didn't hurt people in that process as a man. Like he didn't belittle people, he didn't punch people, he didn't take that unethical route in order to win. Like I said, LeBron James's biggest problem though is that he always wants to be liked, and maybe that's where the weakness comes in. But at least LeBron James can live with himself and saying, I won this many championships. I didn't have to become a tyrant to make that happen.
Yeah,
Real
100%.
quick,
Go ahead.
Can you imagine if it was MJ in LeBron's shoes when J.R. Smith had the ball and ran backwards on the other side of the court?
Like,
I
Different.
want to give Chris a lot of props here because Chris has always been very steadfast and 100% without any hesitation has always said that Pippen was, or I think your quote unquote was a bitch, right? That's what, what was the right? Yeah, okay.
Fuck Scottie
I don't want
Pippen.
to miss. But dude, the fact, and when they showed the fact that Scottie Pippen refused to go in because he didn't get the last shot when it was his turn to be the leader, and instead of Pippen having the last shot, Phil Jackson gave it to Tony Kukoc, and he refused to come in. Imagine the backlash today's day and age if you were the superstar of a team and refused to come in. And I think the only reason I forgot about that. Did you remember that? Because I completely forgot.
I watched that game on NBC. I couldn't believe it as a kid. I'm like, oh my God, Scottie Pippen's going to come in. That's where in my head as a kid, I was like, man, Scottie Pippen's a bitch. Like, you don't just do that in the middle of a playoff game. You don't quit on your team like that. I've always learned that. No matter how bad it is, you never quit on your team.
So, I'm sorry. And for whatever wrong I had Scottie Pippen at, it got notched down a couple wrongs, a couple levels because I, for one, forgot, right? And by doing so, he had a chance to apologize in his documentary, and he said, "I do things the same way." And you know, I don't know whether that was a determining factor or not, whether they didn't win the championship overall that year that Michael Jordan left, but it couldn't have helped. It couldn't have helped. I mean, that's your guy. That's your superstar that you yourself, Chris, said that, hey, you know, the team was playing better. Whatever chemistry they had, ruined it. He ruined it.
They ruined it. You know what's interesting, though? I will say I think that when we start digging deeper into this whole Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Jerry Cross, and we know that Jerry Cross is the real COVID-19. You know, but I'm starting to get low key, and I think no one's ever brought this up. I haven't heard anybody bring this up, but Jerry Cross was very obsessed with not only being recognized as the creator and the genius of putting the Bulls team together, but I also noticed that he definitely had an obsession and a like for players that were not black. He every player that he brought in that he liked or thought was the best player seemed to be white, and that caused definitely a rift between Michael Jordan and Jerry Cross. Just gives me that whole old school, like, because you got to think about Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan especially is walking around like, I mean, he did own the Bulls. He did own Chicago. I don't think that his cockiness, I think it rubbed Jerry Cross a certain way from a racial standpoint. That's just my opinion. It's just some things I picked up.
Okay, so let's real quick. Who is the villain in this documentary up to this point?
Everyone except for Dennis Rodman.
Hey, honestly, that's a good thing for Dennis Rodman. Like, nobody.
Yeah, man.
Oh, anyway, so
What'd you do?
what happened? Anyway, so just real quick, I guess, you know, I want to finish the rundown of the show. You know, you had Michael Jordan come back wearing a 4-5. He eventually gets beat out by Horace Grant, lifted up on the shoulders. You know, you got Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, and that was their chance to become champions. And who else can say in Jordan's prime, in Jordan's middle of his career, knocked Jordan out of the playoffs? Nobody, but Shaq can. And of course, Horace Grant. And then you get to see his rise back up to all the way to the punching of Steve Kerr. And then, of course, winning the championship. Or actually, I think they showed, and what really I enjoyed about the episode 8 was they showed the comeback of Michael Jordan and winning the championship over the Supersonics, like we said at the beginning of the show, with Gary Payton. I love the fact that Gary Payton took it upon himself, didn't back down from Michael Jordan, ended up winning a couple games. And that was actually the best Jordan team out there, and what people consider the greatest team of all time, arguably, 72-10 season. So for Gary Payton, shout outs to him. I forget, man, the Sonics were that good. They had all those players: Percy Hawkins, Sean Kemp, Devlin Shrimp, and of course Gary Payton. So,
Hey, real fast, John. I watched that game where Gary Payton was locking Michael Jordan up. He was doing enough as a competitor and someone who appreciates defense. It was a disservice of Michael Jordan.
What did you think? What did you think about Michael Jordan's laugh? Watching that.
That just goes to show you how narcissistic and egocentric he is. He had a moment to really give Gary Payton. Listen, besides Gary Payton, the only other player that I've known that to play Michael Jordan so hard was Vernon Maxwell. And I want to be on record for saying this too, that in 1993, when Michael Jordan won his third championship, he came in third place for MVP voting. Charles Barkley won MVP that year. Hakeem Olajuwon came in second for most valuable player. And all the years that Michael Jordan played the Rockets, the Rockets were 5-1 against the Bulls.
Yeah.
So I want everybody to know that. So
no, for sure. That's the one thing in my childhood that I think I never got to see was Michael Jordan versus the Rockets in the NBA final. And there would have been no excuse. No, he's working his way back into the season. I hated the fact that Jordan lost to Orlando. And I wasn't like gung-ho about Jordan getting to the finals again. It was just I was gung-ho to see Jordan versus Hakeem Olajuwon. That's the only reason I wanted to see Jordan in the finals, is because I wanted to see that matchup. It's the only matchup in my entire childhood, in my entire time of being a fan of sports, period, is the one game or series that I never got to see. And that's that.
What's the one thing that Phil Jackson never does as a coach?
Shoot. Win without superstars?
No, besides that, Phil Jackson never double teams. In the triangle offense,
Oh, yeah.
as far as his coaching, in his whole career, he has never double teamed. This is why, another unpopular opinion for all those outside of Houston, the Bulls would have got beat and destroyed by the Rockets because they would have refused to double team the nightmare himself, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon. Boom.
Yes, sir.
Got double team that man.
So Bet Online came out now that they're trying to put this whole LeBron James or Michael Jordan, who's the greatest of all time. Bet Online put out a poll. 26 out of the 50 states go Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan beat out LeBron by 26-24. And on top of that, Shaq has come out and he said that Michael Jordan by far is the greatest player that he's ever played with or played against, and I think he's also the best barometer because he played against Jordan, played with Kobe Bryant, and he's played against LeBron James. So with that being said, didn't he play with LeBron James as well?
Yes.
In Cleveland?
Yeah, man, he was a team slut, man. He played for like 10 different teams. Fat Shaq trying to chase rings and donuts.
So how much validity do you put into Shaq saying that Michael Jordan is the GOAT? Would have averaged 45 points in the season in today's.
I'd like to say that Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time.
No, I first of all, I'm just shocked that we're debating Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Where the fuck is Kobe Bryant in this whole picture? Why are we taking him out? Matter of fact, why are we comparing a player that can't even touch Kobe Bryant's status? Why are we even putting LeBron James? That's just like comparing like Snickers to like mustard. You just can't do that. It's just ridiculous in all aspects. First of all, Jordan is the greatest of all time. We've seen him do this docu-series. There's nothing. I mean, this man started from the bottom and worked his way to the top. He wasn't crowned King James in high school. He wasn't hyped up with Sports Illustrated in high school. He hasn't been able to just pick and choose what he wants to do in his life and pick the coaches. Michael Jordan had to adjust. I mean, he was playing in Chicago when nobody even were coming to the games. I mean, he was on the sorriest team for like 7-8 years before they even got to somewhere important. With that being said, LeBron James shouldn't even be in the discussion of greatest of all time. That was something him and his PR team did last year to try to justify all the losing he's done and all the championships he could have won. I mean, it's as simple as that.
There you go. Yeah, you heard it. Christopher is on the side of Kobe Bryant. Yes, sir. I got Michael Jordan, Kobe, LeBron James, maybe in that order, but I agree. So, Chris, perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next, which was Kobe Bryant apparently had, and it's been confirmed through sources, that Kobe Bryant had an all-access film crew follow him through his final season. Now, my question to the fellas is this. First of all, what would you rather have him being followed? His final championship season or his final 2 championship season when he won 4 and 5, or rather him just chronically just go through his final season and kind of replay it like The Last Dance, his final the entirety of his career.
I kind of like the whole Last Dance approach. And just so you know, I think watching The Last Dance, and I told you guys this earlier off record, that watching The Last Dance just solidify me putting Kobe Bryant over Michael Jordan for me as the greatest player that I would say is the greatest player. And that's because universally, as not only as a player, but as a man, a family man, that's why, like, if I could title it, I would definitely call it Finding Peace Within the Game, because I think Michael Jordan was obviously someone that Kobe looked up to and wanted to just, mimic everything that Michael Jordan did. And it came to a point in in Kobe Bryant's career where he didn't want to be like Mike anymore. He wanted to be greater than Mike. And then towards the end of his career, the last 4 or 5 years of his career, it's almost as if Kobe Bryant had an awakening that I'm sacrificing everything to the point where I'm isolating people that I love. I'm no longer a good teammate. I can't socialize with people because I'm just so focused on the drive of winning that in reality, I'm not happy and the people around me are not happy. So what is it really for? What is all this really for? And it felt like Kobe kind of like, is like I was telling you guys, as if like, for a lot of us men, when we turn 30, that's when the switch comes on, when we kind of get everything. And it's almost as if the switch came.
Speak for yourself.
Well, Johnny, I forgot you still haven't figured that switch yet, but that was another story for another day. But no, but like it feels like, especially that last year, man, Kobe was done. Like he was tired. He didn't want to play anymore. He didn't like, even when you see like that last season where his goodbye tour, you could tell he's just ready to go. Like he came in peace with himself that he did everything he possibly could to solidify his legacy as one of the greatest of all times. But for him, there was so much more after basketball. Whereas for Michael Jordan, there's nothing but basketball even today for Michael Jordan. Like it's about him, himself, his own feelings. Kobe Bryant saw like the tunnel, the light at the end of the tunnel. Like he saw something so much greater and purpose driven for him that was outside of the game. And I would love to see how that's chronologically put together in that aspect.
Yeah, 100%. Now, when you see LeBron James in this sense, because he's basically, if we take our greatest of all time, right? You have Michael Jordan. You can even go before that, but who we followed, whether it be Magic and Bird, then it's Michael Jordan, then it was Kobe, now it's LeBron James. And we got to see everybody's retirement play out. I don't think that LeBron James can handle retirement as well as Kobe Bryant can. If you remember, I mean, I can't even really say that Michael Jordan handled it too well. Michael Jordan preferred to just quit, and as opposed to riding out in the sunset. And, Kobe Bryant played until he physically couldn't play anymore. He even says it himself, mentally he could play all day till he was, 80. Physically, he started to break down. And then you got to see the last game of his career, he goes off for 60 points, So you knew he still had it in him. As far as somebody like LeBron James, I don't know if he knows how to handle life without basketball. I would love to see it. I mean, as a man, as a fan, it's gonna be a big question mark in my estimation to see him ride it out into the sunset. Now, when it comes to Kobe Bryant, what would you title that documentary?
Finding peace within the game. I think it's such a war and battle to try to be we learned from Michael Jordan that wanting to be the best at everything in this game is the ultimate sacrifice. You have to literally sacrifice everything. It is a war within itself, a game within the game. I think for Kobe, for him to find peace in the game and the way he went out, I think to me is like poetry in motion. And I that's just what I would tie. Finding peace within the game. I think he found comfort and was at peace of who he was and his legacy. And a lot of players can't say that. There's so many players throughout sports that still fool around and dwindle with the whole what if aspect of it. Or I could have done more. I should have done more. Why didn't I do this? Or why did I do that? Like even when LeBron James has a docuseries, it's going to document him going to the Miami Heat and playing with superstars, right? Like that's always going to bother LeBron James. And I think it's always going to bother Durant that he won his championships, what people are considering like, easy way. You know what I mean? Kobe, man, he grinded it out all the way to the end. You know what I mean? He was at peace with himself as a player.
100%. I would personally, I would probably name it like 5 or 60 or something like that. Something that chronically tells the story of his 5 championships and the way he goes out. But what I really, really want to see is how he pulled that team together to win 4 and 5. I think that if we look back and make it honestly if we look back and we honestly have a vision of how good the other teams really were that he had to beat to get to that point, we can honestly say that it's along the same level as Michael Jordan getting over, say, the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks and then eventually the Lakers. Because if you look at it, they beat the Boston Celtics, who the Boston Celtics themselves were champions. That's how, I mean, you can tell me all these teams that you had to face, but, you know, you got to understand how good the other opponent was. And to vindicate yourself by winning a championship versus the best opponents in your era, that speaks a lot in itself. So the one championship, and I'm not trying to say one championship is more valuable than the other, but the one that I put the most validity into LeBron James is the one he won in Cleveland. And because he had to beat a team that was really good. So I want to see how he came about, Kobe Bryant came about and took that team that wasn't the star-driven team that LA had with Shaq. This team was completely different, built around Kobe Bryant himself, and Paul Gasol was probably the next best player, you know. And to take that team and win 2 championships, that was impressive, and I want to see that story. All right, Khoa. What I kind of wanted to segue into another one where in today's day and age, when we got COVID-19 going around and all these situations where we have to social distance ourselves, I want to, as much as anybody, want to see sports. I do. You have UFC opening up. They went ahead and put out 249, UFC 249. You have NBA. The NBA is coming out and they're talking to the agents, the owners, the board of governors. The top players are coming out talking amongst themselves. And everybody is trying to figure out a way to restart. They're the ones, to me, that are putting the most effort into restarting on a legitimate level. So much so that they've looked into 2 the reports say they've looked into 2 sites, Orlando, Florida, and Las Vegas. And according to the reports, Adam Silver has actually come out and said he wants a campus environment as far as everybody getting together and playing these NBA games. Of course, no fans. The NFL just pushed back virtual offseason for another 15 days. I'm wondering what, if at all, do they think that their season is going to start or not as far as the NFL is concerned? Or are they just going to go ahead and plan it without fans? But they look like they're not really missing a beat other than preparing a little bit. So what is sports going to look like in about a month or 2, Chris?
Like wrestling, like WWE, where there's no fans. Like, because I just got a Yahoo message that said that the NFL they're gonna have games, but they're gonna have like the background crowd noise. So like when there's a touchdown, they're gonna have the crowd roar.
No, they're not.
Yes, I just read this right now, and not only that, but it's like some of the announcers saying it's really going to be up to the announcers to react to the way the crowd would react, and that is going to say who's the best announcers at that point. Because you're really going to, because I think I told you with wrestling, you can see who the real wrestlers are, who the people with good mouthpieces are, and then you can see the ones who are just horrible. I think you're going to really see. I know we've been frustrated watching NFL games. Like, why is this person even on TV? I think we're really going to see how horrible some of these guys really are. I think here's my thing on the whole NBA thing. I know Adam Silver talked to all the top star players right now, and all of them consensus are that they want to play. But what happens when the rest of the league may not want to play because they're worried and have fear about COVID-19?
Well, there's a player that came out and he said under the guise of anonymity, he said that about 7 out of 10 players want to come back and play. But think about that. 30% of the entire NBA hasn't agreed to come back. That's a lot. That's a big number, you know?
So we're just going to get like a team of 12 people, you know, or a team of 8 people, you know what I mean? Because I'm just curious because I feel like, you know, I'm invested. I want to see sports now. And especially now that James Harden is not fat, he's like in super shape. I've said this on plenty of times. I want the Rockets to come back and play. And I know other analysts, like Charles Barkley and most recently Shaq saying that they shouldn't, and that whatever team wins a championship this year, there's an asterisk behind it. I think that's stupid. I think those guys are just upset because they didn't win a championship. This is my personal opinion. Charles Barkley. We didn't put an asterisk. We would never. I don't know anybody that doesn't acknowledge that the Spurs in 98, 99 season, who only played 50 games with a shortened season and they became champions. I don't know anybody that puts an asterisk by the season, because even if the scenario plays out where they play 10 regular games and then they play the playoff teams, you still have to play to win. And even if this was like a tournament, like they've been talking about, this is what would happen in a tournament style. So, you know, I think a lot of people are maybe worried that the teams that they want to win the championship, the Lakers, what if they don't make it? And then, you know, some team out of left field wins the championship because of the shortened season. And that's another thing too. I'm curious to see which players actually stayed in game shape. They've had all this time off. That will show their competitiveness if they really have that MJ mentality, that they're ready to play and take it and win. Because I think there's a lot of players and a lot of teams that might have been in good rhythm and they were winning. I think they come back and they're not going to be good. You know, it should be interesting.
I'm worried. I'm worried to see like what happens if there is a positive test. You know, or what more than one. You know, to the point where, you know, I just don't want it to start and then stop again, you know. But I have faith. Adam Silver does say that they should have something in place by 2 to 4 weeks. So in about 2 to 4 weeks, we should know. It's gonna be weird, or it's gonna be something else too. How do they handle the tournament? Like, how are they gonna have a playing game, or all 30 teams gonna be available to play? Or are they gonna just do the top 8 teams on each side? I really I'm looking forward to it in a sense of like I want to see some type of sports, but when you look at baseball and football, it's a whole different beast. You know, that's a lot of traveling. That's a lot of, you know, the organizations themselves, where, you know, basketball's anywhere from 12 to 15 players. In NFL, that's like a 53-man roster. You know, baseball is a 20, 27, 28-man roster. And then you're including the whole season of both of those leagues playing out, and all of the teams are available. So, man, I want to be optimistic, and I really do. And as a sports fan, I want to see sports come back in some way, form, or fashion. But these leagues are different, man. I mean, I saw that the UFC came out and they did their show and they had protocols and stuff. But then you still see them shake their hands. You know, you still see people come in the cage without a mask and stuff. And hopefully nobody got sick. But it's different, you know, that you can control about 50 people.
Let me ask you guys a question. during COVID-19 at the hospital, we found out that people, and we found out a lot of people at jobs, even though that they were being, filtered and monitored, were lying about having a temperature, were lying about being sick, about having symptoms just because they didn't want to stop working. I feel that what happens if a scenario where you have the Bucks and the Greek Freak and LeBron James and the Lakers in the championship, and LeBron James or the Greek Freak are sick, and they lie in order to play, in order to win a championship, putting other players at risk. Because here's the thing about protocols. We've seen it in NFL. There's supposed to be a concussion protocol, and players lie about that all the time. The NBA, there's been concussion protocols, and players have lied all the time because of the competitiveness of wanting to win. We know it. There's been times I've been sick and still went out there and played when I shouldn't have. So how are they going to keep and monitor that? Because what happens if the league says, sorry, LeBron James, you can't play in the championship because you have to quarantine yourself for 14 days? What happens then? So there's a lot of risk there. And I'm gonna tell you right now, those they would lie. I know they would lie to play.
Well, it's different though. They can't lie.
Yeah, they can. The NBA can too,
test?
because well, here's the thing. NBA can lie and hide the test too as well, because NBA, let's get it twisted. NBA wants to go back to work because they're losing money. They already lost a shitload of money with the Daryl Morey Chinese thing. So they're trying to make money. So don't get it twisted. So what happens if we find out later on down the road that LeBron James played and he got everybody sick because we wanted LeBron James and the Lakers to win a championship, and the NBA wanted to their top best players to be on TV so ratings can go up, so money and revenue can go up? That's what I'm saying, man. I feel like.
So what do you feel? How do you feel about the UFC coming out and putting on their show? Shout out Justin Gaethje defeats El Kukui, and then of course Francis Ngannou, man, has hand grenades for hands. But yeah, how do you feel about UFC coming out and performing their show, even though everything like this is going on?
Well, I mean, it's a sport that's violent. I don't think they really care. Let's be honest with you. I mean, Dana White lives by a completely different filter. We're learning today that there's people who care about people's health, and there's people who care about money and the economy. Like you're either the left or right in that standpoint. I think there's just a lot of risk there. At the end of the day, I always say this, like, players have to players or fighters, they make the decision for themselves. I think it would just be sad if the story comes out, like, after they, proceeded with this fight, that just one person tested positive from this outcome with COVID-19. I think if that happens, that might change the way all the different sports entertainment is going to go about their things. I think in NBA, they care more about making it manageable because there's less players. But still, if you're talking about a campus, and let's just say the most people you have on this campus committee is 400 people, that's still 400 ways to get COVID-19, either way you look at it. So, man, first of all, it just sucks that COVID-19 even exists. I think it's sad that we're even at this point in our life. This is such a game changer. And, you can be one of those people that feels like, well, I'm young and I can't get sick. But we're still learning so much about COVID-19 and how it affects people. And now we're seeing people in their teens or 20s getting really sick from this. And, seems like the healthiest people are starting to get sick too from it because of the way their body reacts to the disease. But I don't know. I want to see sports. I really do. But I also don't want to be ignorant about it as well.
No, I completely agree. You touched on something that is really gave you a perfect example. So there's a fighter, Jacare Souza, who actually tested positive, but he made the trip, and he made the trip, and he went anyways, hoping that
it'll go away.
He didn't go, he didn't get caught or whatever. But luckily they did find it, and they secluded him away. So, but hey, man, that goes more to your point. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting to the point of the show where we're going to have to say our goodbyes. But before that, I have to give a big shout out to my man, Christopher Rodriguez. Sir, man, I got to give a huge shout out to Grown Talk. at the beginning of the show, I called you Dad of the Year because I need to sit back and watch that show. Everybody, any father, anybody that has a kid in their life that they want to make a difference, man, Chris, there's a saying. It says that just look at the people that who you hang around with. That'll give you a good picture of who you are. And I could not be more proud to say that I got these two gentlemen in my life helping me and just being a better man. And that in itself, just being around you guys helps me be a better man. And, man, I tell you what, Chris, much props to you. Everybody, like I said, needs to go out and check out Grown Talk, GRWN, and it really is Grown Man Talk. It's by Andrew Tong.
Andrew Tong. Yeah, Andrew Tong, man.
Shout out to him as well. Him and his wife put on a great show. Chris was on this past weekend, and he talks about fatherhood in 2020 and what it takes to be a father, a mentor, somebody to look up to as a father figure in a kid's life. And it's so important for men out there to hear this message and hear what Chris and Andrew have to say. So big shout out to you guys. Like I said, I couldn't be more prouder.
Oh, man, thank you. I really appreciate it. Andrew Ton is an amazing interviewer, and it was just a good feel, and it was just a great conversation. And by all means, I think that's the number one thing you learn from being a parent is that you have earthly no idea on how to be a parent. And you have to be willing to, as much as we hold our kids accountable, hold yourself accountable first. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to get it right the first time. Shit, you may not get it right a few times, but it's just the learning. Shit, it's just a learning process. And at the same time, man, I have a good wife who already laid down the foundation pieces with Josh. You know what I mean? And then just going from there. So
Hey man, that show was so entertaining as well. Like I said, man, it had so much knowledge in it. I want to sit down and again take notes. I actually, man, if I can, if I get a chance to, and I'm gonna try to push you, I want to put out a book for you, man, of everything that your tenets that you live by and you show and you preserve and push on. So yeah, man. Again, like I said, can't say enough. Khoa, I know you watched it too, and you back up everything I say. So,
For sure.
Anything else? Any more shout outs you want to give out? Andrew Ton, Andrew Ton, Grown Talk. Go check him out.
Yeah, I actually hope to have Andrew on our show soon. And I want to do a segment where we talk about when you're not from a specific city or you've never lived a city your whole life, how do you become a sports fan? And I really feel like those who follow teams or those who have a connection with teams that because of them not specifically being from that city, to me, might be even better fans than the fans within the city. I think we know as growing up as a man in general, identifying with someone you look up to is like the part of the journey of being a man. And sports has a big piece to that. And so it'd be great to have Andrew Ton, who's a military kid, who's definitely followed, been all over the place like you, John, and how you guys journey to becoming the sports fan of the teams you are now. Because trust me, I've met a lot of fans of different teams, but I've never met a Redskins fan, and he is a Washington Redskins fan. And that is hard. If you're a Washington Redskins fan and you still follow them, you're a true fan because they've been garbage for a long time.
Respect
For sure. So it'd be great to have him on. I think he just brings a good energy, and it'd be great to have him on the show. And again, it's about building with each other as men. And everybody's creating a podcast and creating a creative zone, and it'd be great to just create and curate with other men.
I remember when we were having these conversations about, building this podcast up, you wanted to get creative minds together. And you know what I love about putting on this show and putting on shows like this with this type of content is whether it came, like you said, you wanted to set up a meeting, it's starting to happen. organically without any, us saying, hey, let's, all get together. No, we're creating our own community, and I feel blessed to have you guys on there. Andrew Ton is always welcome whenever he wants to come on. And the more the merrier, I'm always like that. So whenever we can, let's make it happen, man. Let's put it together.
Actually, I'm actually wanting to do a docuseries about Khoa being a Texans fan. Especially going into, no, I'm being serious, especially going into this series. I was thinking about you, Khoa, the other day, because somebody texted me. He's like, will you ever, I'm not going to say this person is like, will you ever say anything nice about the Texans? And I felt bad because I'm like, damn, I get on them really, really hard. And I think sometimes, like, we all have certain teams and just certain players that we just admire for different reasons. And I'm actually going to take a different stance this year. I am honestly wanting to bring in positive energy. I want to see how the Texans season play out, and I want to hope for the best. This is hard for me to say.
What?
But
who are you, and what have you done with my friend Chris?
No. I think for all purposes, I think that we're living in such a negative world now that even now that we don't even have sports, I'm like, I gotta find the positive.
No, I want Chris back. I want.
Oh, no. I don't like it.
Nah. I want to listen. I just thought it'd be cool to film like a little docuseries of watching like Calvin and Khoa like watch Texans games, because I think because I've watched them watch Texans games, and man, they love the Texans. It makes me love the Texans more.
Guys, you're bringing back bad memories of last year. So, but I honestly, we're gonna get into this next show, but the schedule came out and everybody's kind of negative, Chris. And I would have expected you to be on that train, but
Chris.
You know what I told John? A couple weeks ago, I think. I don't think I mentioned it to you. I think it was after episodes 1 and 2 of The Last Dance came out. And I was like, man, I couldn't help but think. I was like, so I didn't follow the Bulls that closely whenever they were playing, whenever they were actually playing. I mean, I was a little kid. I wasn't really watching basketball yet. So learning a lot of this stuff for the first time of like the team dynamic, especially with, Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf. And so I was like watching, I'm like, man, I can't help but think when they portray Jerry Krause to be like this villain and everything, that how he was being the GM and all the strings he was pulling and his ego and how he was like kind of egotistical. I was like, it kind of reminds me of Bill O'Brien. Like I can't help but think that. And I was like, man, I know it's not like a 1-for-1 comparison, but it's kind of close in a way, right? Because especially when I think about the things you say, Chris, when you've said, man, Bill O'Brien only let DeAndre Hopkins go because of his own damn ego. He couldn't compete with him. He was the strongest, the biggest star in the locker room, and he couldn't handle that, blah, blah, blah. He had to let him go. And then watching The Last Dance and saying how much rift that Jay Krause was having with Phil Jackson, with Michael, with, kind of the star players and the key people. And I'm like, how can you even think of this team without Michael? How can you think of this team without Phil Jackson? So
I don't know.
Can you see Chris on your screen? Look at him. He's trying to be positive.
Hey,
don't break it. Don't break it.
Khoa, what did you think about the article that came out with J.J. Watt talked about Hopkins getting traded? We didn't talk about that. I thought it was kind of telling. Did you read that? Did you get a chance to read it?
I skimmed it. I didn't read the whole way through because I wanted to really kind of like read it and like soak it in. But I read a line or two. So you want to give me the update?
Well, I mean, he just pretty much said that when you trade somebody like Hopkins, it really opens your eyes about the way the team management is and what they're, you could tell that he was trying to, in J.J. Watt's fashion, try to say and say and do all the right things, be politically correct, you can say, but you can honestly tell he was bothered by it, and that for him it didn't make any sense,
I'm going to let you guys know right now. Reading that article, unequivocally, let me know this is J.J. Watt's last season. There is almost a 99% chance that J.J. Watt's last season, barring something big, like barring the season shutdown or, him getting an injury, he might try to push out one more season or something like that. But pretty much he's moving on to bigger and better things. He's admitted that he's at peace with him and his wife. He's doing business deals with him and his brothers. He's become more and more of a philanthropist. He has so many different things going on that I could tell he's got a couple feet out the door. And I think
he's gonna play. I think a couple things could happen this year. Number one, I thought it was interesting that Coach Weaver, our new defensive coordinator, says that the defense success is based on J.J. Watt being able to play the whole season. To me, that's interesting that he would say something like that. Number two, I think J.J. Watt secretly, because he's so close, I think he wants to play with both of his brothers who so happen to play on Pittsburgh. And I feel like J.J. Watt and Hopkins – listen, I think somebody told me the other day that Hopkins really wanted to be traded, that he pushed this anyways. I think people fail to realize I think Hopkins wanted more money if he had to play for Bill O'Brien. And I think J.J. Watt is also realizing, like, do I really want to play another 2 or 3 seasons under Bill O'Brien when I know what the end result's going to be? If I can't win a championship, at least go out my own way by playing with my brothers who he's always wanted to play with on a team. You know what I mean? So I think J.J. Watt, man, he could get cut, he could get traded, or he could demand a trade behind closed doors. But I don't think J.J. Watt's going to be the face of the Texans. Right now, the face of the Texans is Bill O'Brien. Whether you like it or not, I think he's the face of the Texans at this point. So
you think that J.J. Watt could possibly go to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, that'd be kind of badass. I'm not going to lie.
Wow.
Man, that would be – I mean, here, listen. No, as the resident Texans fan here, ain't nobody want to see J.J. Watt go. But, I mean, I would be lying to you if I was to tell you that I wouldn't be so damn happy and so excited for him if he got to play with his brothers.
And who the hell wouldn't want to see that?
What does that say about us? Because I felt the same way with Andre Johnson. I felt the same. I'm starting to feel the same way with J.J. Watt. At least he's going somewhere he wants to play, right? Or, if he's not going to win a championship here in Houston, well, hopefully he wins it somewhere.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I mean, that's a good point. And so, I'm sure we all know somebody like this where they're either kind of more fans of or an organization or a team versus a fan of the player or the star or whatever on that team, right? And let's say, when one leaves or when they depart ways, where does your loyalty kind of lie? So like when Jalen Hurts left Alabama, Chris, you still followed and you still supported him, Houston boy, of course, when he played for Oklahoma and whatnot. So, so does that say more about the loyalty that you don't have to Alabama, or does that say that for whatever reason, whether it be because we develop these almost like personal kind of like relationship fanships with these players, because it's pretty easy, or not, I wouldn't say easy, but J.J. Watt arguably, has been the face of the Texans for as long as he's been here, and there's really no one else that is the face of not even just the Texan, but of Houston sports. The amount of things he's done as far as even just like advertising promotion. Of course, everyone knows him from his HEB commercials, but of just other things like that as well. But the of course, the PR that's done. He's been the face of that, and he's made the city fall in love with him. The city that's not even his own city, fall in love with him. And of course, that's one of the beauties, I think, of sports. But yeah, I mean, it makes you think, and it's like, I'm not saying that I would be happy as a Texans fan. I would be happy just for him, because I would support him. And I think most people that are Texans fan, if you're a true Texans fan, it would suck, but I think that you would respect him and love him so much that you would want him to be happy as well,
Man, Khoa, you always got to make us think, man. What the hell? All
hey,
right.
low key. Hey, John, low key. How many Bostonians right now are rooting for Tom Brady in Tampa Bay?
That's true. Look it up. All right, fellas. I think we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. I know we said bye a couple times already, but this is the Sports Trap, and I'm out.
Peace.
Yeah.